hand mic? Okay. Good morning, new community. He knows my name. That's one of my favorite songs. Close my Sorry, y'all had to see that. All right. I don't have any idea how Jesus walked to the cross. I have no idea how he bared the Garden of Gethsemane. Because coming up here today has been, whew. Oh, Jesus. I have not cried as much, probably in forever. I belong to a very strong tribe called woman, especially a black woman. And one of the things I was taught is that you got to ride. You got to get up, you got to go, you got to do what you got to do. And sometimes you can't. Right? Sometimes you can't do it. And you are weak, and you don't have what it takes, and you are doubting yourself. Excuse me. It is absolutely ridiculous that I stand on this stage. Absolutely ridiculous. I have lied, cheated, stole, looked down on people, condemned them, judged them. I've done all those things. And to be ridiculous is just something that's just laughable, something that's unbelievable. Like, why would this happen? How could you be here? How are you here? And I've been just crying out to God, like, Lord, I don't want to do this. This morning I said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want people looking at me. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want any of that. And that's when the whisper comes. That's when the whisper comes. It's called grace. Grace is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Because it's not a reward. Grace is literally something you don't deserve. You can't work for it. You can't buy it. You can't sell it. You can't trade it. In fact, if you get grace, it's because you did something wrong. It's because you messed up. Grace is only appreciated in the middle of your sin, in the midst of your brokenness, and when you are suffering like you've never suffered before. If you were not suffering, you cannot experience grace. I promise you, you won't get it. You won't get it. Grace in and of itself is a ridiculous notion. And that is why we can't give grace. We don't give grace. We're not graceful. And I don't mean the kind of grace when you walking pretty. I mean grace that says, I forgive you anyway. That says, you can go up there anyway. You cheated, you lied, you stole, you can go up there anyway. Grace whispers, just like it did to me, I trust you with my children. What? I've condemned your children. I've judged them. I've looked at them. I've caused them shame, some of them. And you trust me with your children? Don't do that. Don't do that, Lord. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for you to trust me. I have nothing that can be trusted. And so this morning, one of my sweet daughters, and I have a whole bunch of them, she's putting on my makeup, and I said, I'm not going. I can't do this. They gonna find somebody else. Chris, he's done this a lot. He can just get up there and just start preaching. He got it. He did it a lot. But lo and behold, it's like this song just said, he knows my name. He knows your name. He knows everything about you, every hair on your head, every sin you've committed, the ones we know about and the ones we don't. He knows you. And so, I had to say all that to give myself the willingness to start. That is not even my intro. But it took so much for me to get up here, I had to tell y'all where I was at. Okay. Lord, help me. All right. In the midst of everything that you go through, though, my only message for you today is that you have to go to the throne of grace. I don't have anything to offer you today except that. The throne of grace. So let's go there. We're going to pray. Dear Lord, I just thank you for this time that we have together. I thank you for allowing me to be on this stage. Give us our true identity in your grace, Lord. Let us be strengthened by the grace that is in Jesus. For the time has come for us to begin to be honest in the house of God. We must begin to be honest with ourselves first. It is good for the heart to be strengthened by grace. That's what your word says. Let us testify to the good news of God's grace. Allow our hopes to be fulfilled in grace that's revealed only when we get to know you, Lord. Let us believe, like Paul, that your grace is sufficient. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I heard this story about a little girl, and I thought this story was great. It was a great jump-off point before I started undressing and crying. And the story goes like this. It's a 19th century story, and it's about a painter. And he was a master painter. And one day he went to visit his daughter, and he had a good time. They had dinner. He had a granddaughter. They sat, they played. And like children do, the granddaughter starts to misbehave. So the mom, just like mothers do, they start getting on your nerve. You know, you're saying, stop, don't do that, stop. You're embarrassing me in front of my dad. Cut that out. Child keeps going. So the mother decides to discipline this child. She decides that she's going to have the child stand in the corner and face the wall. The grandfather witnesses this. He does not interfere. The child is crying, she's standing at the wall, she's facing the wall. He sits for a while. He does not interfere with the discipline. After a time, he gets up, he goes home. The very next day, he comes back. But remember I told you, he's a master painter. When he shows up this time, he shows up with a palette of paint, some paintbrushes. And he asks his daughter if she can take him back to the wall where she disciplined his granddaughter. So she does. And he begins to paint because he's a master painter. And he paints picture after picture after picture. When he's done, he thanks his daughter for allowing him to paint. And he said, this is for my granddaughter, so that the next time you discipline her, at least she'll have something beautiful to look at. And that is a testimony to how God does us. He does not interfere in your discipline. The Bible says he disciplines those he loves. So the discipline will come. You sin, you mess up, discipline's coming. However, he's a master painter. He's going to create something beautiful even in the midst of that. In the midst of my tears, in the midst of me not wanting to come up here, it's like strength was there wrapping his arms around me. I couldn't see it. I didn't know that it was there, but it's like I felt it and I understood it. And God does that not just for me, but he gives that same grace to you. Grace is what makes your pain and your suffering beautiful, even in the midst of it. It doesn't take you out of it. She still had to face that wall. But the next time she went there, one, something was beautiful, and also it reminded her of who her father was. She knew and understood somebody, even though I feel like my mother doesn't love me right now, somebody does. And in the midst of your suffering, God loves you. That's what grace is all about. It's all about him saying, I still love you. Earlier, I mentioned this tribe I belong to called women. And we have a lot of facets to ourselves. We are a complex group of beings. We carry a lot of burdens on our shoulders. We can be happy, we can be sad, we can go off. All right? And I want to just let you know you're just not by yourself. I want to share to you a few women just like you. Now, you may not identify with the first one or the second one. Maybe the third one, not you. Maybe the fourth one's not you. But one of them is you. One of them, I promise, will be you. The first lady I just want to talk to you about So, this is what we have. The first one I want to read, or just tell you about, is the woman who commits adultery. Okay? The woman who commits adultery. And this scripture can be found in John chapter 8. I'm not going to read you the whole story just for the sake of time. I'm only going to read you a little bit of this story. And actually, my PowerPoint is saying something different, so I'm going to go to the other lady, because you got to roll with the punches, right? So, that's Hebrews. All right, let me get why I got to read it. We'll just go here. This is a quote that I thought was good when it talks about grace. It says, grace is not the light at the end of the tunnel, but the light that moves us through the tunnel. And I love that. I thought that saying was just so awesome. In the story of the woman who commits adultery, I'm going to read to you because it's not up there. I think I put them in the wrong order or something. You know, the devil likes to mess with you. He going to figure out a way to mess you up. But I'm just going to keep going and read right from my Bible on my phone. That way you can know what I'm talking about. So here we go. And I'm coming from John. If you have your Bibles or if you have your phone with you, read with me. I'm going to read John chapter 8, verse 5. John chapter 8, verse 5. And we're actually going to go... we're going to read John chapter 8, verse 3 through 11. I apologize. 3 through 11. And it says this, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. And the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say? They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No, sir, she said. Then neither do I condemn you. Jesus declared, Go now and leave your life of sin. I just want you to notice a few things in this text. I want you to first notice the posture of the enemies, right? We all have enemies. You might call them haters. But I want you to understand that posture that they're taking. Now, the day before, Jesus had gotten done confronting them. Right? He's at the Festival of Tabernacles. He's confronting them. He's telling them that they're doing evil things. And they are plotting to kill him. So this is the very next step. He's in the temple. He's teaching people. And then, unlike now, we stand and teach. But Jesus sat and taught. So everybody's sitting down. The tabernacle is full of people. And he's teaching about the law. Okay? And so in comes these enemies of Christ. They come in, and not only are they by themselves, they bring in a woman who's caught in adultery. All right, women. See the enemies. Your enemy, right? He's always watching, looking, waiting for you to mess up. And as soon as you do, right there, they drag her to the tabernacle. But I want you to also see this other thing. It says that they were asking these questions to trap him. This is not even about her. Sometimes your enemy is using your sin to justify their own actions. It has nothing to do with you, because your sin is right there, it's something for them to jump off on. They're using it as a plateau to do what they want to do. So these enemies are not really her enemies, they're the enemies of Christ. But they're going to use her situation to try to trap Jesus. These Jesus, see? He says it ain't going to be that simple. Now, when I read this text, the other thing that I looked at is the posture of Jesus. Right? He says nothing. They come in, they say, this woman has been caught in adultery. This is what the law says. What are you going to do about it? You should know this. The day before, he had just got done telling them about the law and how they were using it in the wrong way, in an evil way. So this is them bringing that back up, trying to trap him in his words. Okay? And so he says, starts writing. Now, lots of people want to know what he was writing, what he was thinking. I'm thinking he was thinking the same thing you would be thinking. Anytime your enemy walk in the room, what do you think? Here come these monkeys. Once again, they don't mean you no good. They don't mean your ministry no good. They don't mean your children any good. They don't mean they mean you harm. So he didn't have nothing to say. It's like, right in this dirt because these monkeys right here every time. And that's the same thing that you would be thinking. But his posture, this is what I want you to understand about Jesus. Jesus' posture is not one of condemnation, but here's why I want us to make sure we go slow. It's also not one of justification. He does not justify her sin. He doesn't go, maybe it's going to be okay, I understand how you make. No, you messed up. You messed up. He does not justify her sin, but he does not condemn her either. So the posture of Jesus is very, very important here. The posture of his enemies is to bring harm. First to Jesus, and then she's just a byproduct. They're like, we're going to stone her as if that's not a big deal. You're going to stone somebody to death. You're going to just say it like that. I'm just stone you. That's a real hard way to die. Because it's not about you. Your enemies don't care what it takes to take you out. The enemy doesn't care what it takes to take you out. He'll take you out, your kids out, your mama, your daddy. Don't care. His only goal is to kill, steal, and destroy. That's it. He will kill anybody along the way. The more, the merrier. That's his motto. So the posture of Jesus is not one of condemnation, but it's not one of justification. The posture of his enemies is to do harm to any and everybody they can. And because you're a woman, I want you to take notice of the woman's posture. Right? Now the law says that if a man sleeps with his neighbor's wife, the dog's wife, anybody's wife, him and the woman should be stoned. Both of them should be stoned. That's what the law says. Now, if I'm the woman, that's gonna be the first thing I'll say. Hey, but what a man! He got a nap too. What's going on? So get him. His name is Earl. He lives at 294. Go. They forgot to grab him when they got me. I want to justify myself. I'm trying to get myself out of this thing. And whenever we in sin, we love to do that. We want to justify ourselves. We want to make it not so bad. And if we can bring somebody with us, we will. Because misery loves company. They were there too. Don't forget him in the back. And his brother came over my house one time too. It's like, come on. But I want you to see her posture. She doesn't justify herself. She is silent. This is what God loves. A heart that says, I'm sorry, Lord. I messed up. I was caught. I was there. I was singing. Ain't nothing wrong with a little bit of grind. I was turning off the lights and lighting the candle, doing all that. I was there. I prepared myself. I got dressed. She's caught in the act of adultery. All right? And the thing that I'm talking about today is absolutely ridiculous grace. It's ridiculous what happens next. He's writing in the sand, and he says, hey, whoever's not guilty, cast the first stone. Right? They leave one by one, from the oldest to the youngest. Once the Lord hears that they're all gone, then he stands up and says, hey, did anybody condemn you? She says, no, sir. His answer is, neither do I. Go and leave your life of sin. Done. That's it. Us? No. I was like, wait. She was sleeping with Earl. Earl is my brother-in-law. And my sister's really hurt by that. I think she should go to jail. I think her kids should be put in the foster system. I mean, we gonna try to crucify this woman. Doesn't do any of that because that's exactly what grace is, and that's what makes grace ridiculous. Yeah. That's why the title of this message is Ridiculous Grace. Ridiculous grace, this is what it did to her. It shielded her. Yeah. Ridiculous grace shields you. When you know you're wrong, she knows she's wrong. She knows she deserves every stone that comes her way. She knew the law before she got there. She wasn't ignorant to it. You're not ignorant to your sin. You know exactly what you do when you're doing it. When you go down there, when you sleep with so-and-so, whatever it is you're doing, you know what you're doing before you're doing it. This is how I know. Because before action can become an action, it's always a thought. It starts as a thought first. Starts here, and then your body starts moving. And then the Lord always says that there's going to be a ram in a bush. There's a ram in a bush. So if something came to help you get out of it, you kept on going. This is Ridiculous Grace does. It sends you another ram. And for her, Jesus is her ram in the bush. She didn't know where she was going. All she knew was one of the fools came and blew out her candles, turned the music off, and started dragging her down the street. She has no clue where she's going. She ends up with Jesus. Now, get this. Jesus is not super popular right now. This environment they're in is a very polytheistic environment. They believe in a lot of gods. So he's trying to get people to see that he's the Messiah. People haven't accepted that yet. So she's not necessarily all that familiar. She didn't see him like, woo, Jesus, I'm saved now. No. She just, this is another fool to condemn me, another person to throw rocks. She has no idea what's going to happen. That's what happens to us. We have no idea when grace is going to show up. And sometimes we don't even know what the ram in the bush is. Her ram in the bush is Jesus. All right? So that's my first point for all you theologians out there that need a point. Ridiculous grace will shield you. It will shield you. You say, I don't commit adultery, I'm not that kind of woman. I keep all my stuff in check. I'm in control of myself. Okay, so I would never do that. So tell me somebody else. Fine. Some of you guys are real strong. You're strong, tough women. You don't take no garbage. Yeah, you put out garbage, but you don't take none in. Okay? People know, don't mess with you. My next sister is just like that. Her name is Tamar. Now, Tamar don't take no mess. Follow me. I'm going to Genesis chapter 38. Genesis chapter 38. And we're going to read verses 15 to 18. It says this: When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, Come now, let me sleep with you. And what will you give me to sleep with me, she said. I'll send you a young goat from my flock, he said. Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it, she asked. He said, What pledge should I give you? Your seal and its cord, and the staff in your hand, she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. Yeah, what? That's in the Bible. A whole bunch of stuff in the Bible. When you start reading, what? Now, let me give you a little background on Tamar. Tamar was married to the son of Judah. She immediately went into a family of foolishness. Judah, if you don't know, I'm going to tell you. Judah is the brother. He sold Joseph. Joseph was his brother. He sold him into slavery. Okay? Because he was jealous, he was mad, sold Joseph into slavery, and kept him moving. Moved away, married a Canaanite woman. Okay? So he married a woman. He had 3 sons. One son was one son was Onan, and the other was Shelah. Those names are something to get, I don't even know what to say about the names, but those were their names. Okay? And so Tamar is offered to the first son, which is They get married, but is evil. The Lord killed him. Boom, dead. In this culture, all right, you have to take care of the widows and the orphans. So what happens, now this is kind of nasty actually, but what happens is the brother-in-law is now responsible for taking care of her. So the next brother in line, she automatically, whether she wants to or not, whether he's ugly, fat, retarded, doesn't matter, she automatically goes with the next brother, okay? Now, she didn't have any children by her first husband. So here it is, you are weeping, you're sad, and they bring in the next brother. And I mean, I'm just like, really? Because if I would want to marry him, I would have did that, but okay. So she has to marry this next brother. Now, the next brother is like, I don't really know if I want to get her pregnant. Here's why he doesn't want to get her pregnant. Because what he understands is his firstborn son would be really the son of his dead brother. And so that firstborn son would become the automatic heir. Okay? Because remember, she's married to the oldest son. So that means any son she gives to him, it would be like his brother is still alive. So he wants his inheritance to come to him. So when they are, making love, he decides he's going to pour his seed on the ground. Okay? That means he's trying not to get her pregnant. He does not want her to be pregnant. So he pours his seed onto the ground, and God said, look at that. Look at that. Boom, dead. He's dead. Okay? And you wish sometimes it would happen that fast, but it doesn't. Some people just stay around forever. They're evil. They just keep living. You see them, and you like, you ain't dead yet. That was wrong. I shouldn't say that. But you do, I think that. Y'all don't think that. I think that. Like, when, Lord, when will you take them back to you? Okay. So, here she is. Here's Tamar. Now, the youngest son is still very young. Let's just say he's 10, 11. I really don't know how old he was. He was very young. All right? So, the father-in-law, which is Judah, says to Tamar, listen, Tamar, why don't you go back to your father's house? And I'm going to, when my son grows up, because remember, she has to go to the next son, because she still doesn't have any children. So, she is a woman that's destitute, and she has no children. This is bad news in this society. Children, really kind of like today, are kind of evidence of your womanliness. You know, if you're infertile, it's super bad at this time. So Tamar says, okay, I'm going to go back to my daddy's house. You call me when Shayla is big enough, and I'll come back and I'm going to marry him. So years go past, the wife even dies, right? His wife, the mother's dead. Shayla, and I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but okay. Shayla grows up. So Tamar hears through the grapevine, you know, I heard it through the grapevine, that Shayla has grown up. And guess who ain't called? Judah. Ain't made a phone call, ain't sent a bird, a smoke signal, nothing. So Tamar's like, look at that. So he grown. I'm still destitute. I'm at my father's house. I'm back at home. And she also has to wear widow's clothes. So she just walks around in black mourning. And years have gone past. She's been mourning for years. And now she hears that her hope might be dead. Exactly. Now, remember, I'm talking to you strong sisters who don't take no mess. Tamar, don't take no mess. That's why when we meet her in the text that I just introduced you to, she has dressed herself up as a prostitute. Because Tamar has decided in her own mind, I got one for you, brother. You're not going to come get me? I'm going to come meet you because I know what you like. I know what you like. So she finds out that he's going to be going to someplace. But there's a road to get there. So she dresses herself up as a prostitute because she knows Judah's nasty. And she sits on the side of the road, and sure enough, he comes, and sure enough, he takes her. And sure enough, she gets pregnant. Now, what we didn't read is right after that. Later on, they go run into Judah. Judah, guess what? Your daughter-in-law, she's pregnant. He's, what? Burn her. That's what he says. Burn her. What? He says, burn, don't stone her. Burn her. Go get her. Bring her back here. We're going to burn her. Don't worry about it. Tamar don't take mess. I told y'all. They came to get Tamar. She said, whoa. It's like the Jerry Springer song. She was like, I know who the baby daddy is. I know who the baby, because remember, we read the text earlier. Where is it? He said, what should I give you? Right? Because she said, I'm going to give you a young sheep. She says, will you give me something as a pledge until you send it? He said, what should I pledge to you? She says, your seal, its cord, and the staff in your hand. Now, Judah, with his dirty, greedy, trifling self, didn't think that through. See, that was like your signature. To have your seal, your cord, and your staff, that's like a man's signature on the birth certificate. I ain't the baby daddy. How about this? Okay? And that's kind of what happens. So they send the burner, and she says, whoa, brothers. Because you know some brothers showed up. Like, we here to burn you. She's like, before y'all do that, take this staff, and this signet, and this cord to the man that owns it. Okay? So they like, don't this look like Judas? This look just like Judas' cord, don't it? You know, another guy like, it sure do. They go to Judah, and they say, listen here, my man, she got you. She got your cord, she got your staff, and she says, you are that baby's pappy. And Judah, for the first time in his life, decides he's going to be honest. He says, you know what? She's right. She is more righteous than I am. She's more righteous. Here's what I want you to get. Don't, because you got to remember who Judah is. He sold his brother into slavery. He's trying to trick Tamar, except for, she ain't having all that foolishness. He is a trifling, greedy soul. Do not allow the world to tell you that you're righteous in your sin. She has lied, cheated, dressed herself up as a prostitute. She's done the very thing the Bible tells us, don't let your good be spoken evil of. Flee the very appearance of evil. She dresses up as a prostitute. She's already committed herself to another man. Yet she's sleeping with this man as the big payback. Right? She done took the law into her own hand. And she gets a lot from this. Because the fact that Judah has a ring, a signet, and a cord, those are also symbols of his wealth. So a man who has a ring, a signet, and a cord is because he is wealthy. So she gets stuff for this. And that's what happens when we in the world, you see somebody that got a lot of stuff, they got a big house, and a fancy car, and 2.5 kids, and 3 dogs, and a turtle, and you think life is great. You think that they go to church every Sunday. They trifling. And so a person of the world who's unrighteous is saying, oh, but you're more righteous than me. Of course I am. You in the world. That's no kind of comparison. There's no comparison. But here's the thing. Here's how God saves her anyway. He saves Tamar with a little trifling self anyway. Tamar, here's why you can't let somebody tell you where you're going to end up at either. You can't let them speak into your life and tell you that just because these things are happening to you, this is where you're going to end up at. Tamar ends up in Jesus' genealogy. She ends up as part of part of the tribe of Jesus. That's where she ends up at. After all of that, that's her grace. It's like at the end of the day, this woman ends up as part of Jesus' genealogy. She brings forth a child that goes on to be a great man of God. It's like, how does that even happen? How does that happen from all of this unrighteousness? All of this unrighteousness that's happening everywhere around her. Here's what grace did for Tamar. It exposed her. Right? If we didn't know her before, so before she started messing with Judah, she probably was righteous, and everybody's like, Tamar's so sweet. She's so, same thing they said about some of us. They so sweet. They so nice. Cross Tamar if you're going to. Tamar will dress up on you and stab you in your back. She is not to be played with. Ridiculous grace will expose you. It will shield you, but it will also expose you. It exposes Tamar's pride here. Because she didn't, not one time, there's nowhere in the scripture that says she prayed, that she went to God, that she did anything where God was concerned. She did it by her own volition. Her own volition is what she does it. But God puts her in his genealogy anyway. Because at some point, Tamar had to get it together. At some point, she received God's grace. All right, we're going to keep moving. You say, I'm not that strong. I don't commit adultery. I'm kind of quiet. I'm not really that strong. I'm just a sweet girl. I don't do much. In fact, I am a righteous woman. I go to church. I pray. I love the Lord. Fine. Then there's the story of Ruth. Ruth is in Judges 21. Chapter 21 is where we're going to go. So go to Judges chapter 21, verse 22. Judges chapter 21, verse 22. And it reads like this, as soon as I find it. Judges chapter 21, verse 22. I feel like I'm in the wrong chapter. Chapter 2. Judges, it's up there. And Ruth, look. Praise the Lord, look at that. Yes, there we go. It's Ruth chapter 2, verse 2. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. That's Ruth. The first thing I want you to notice about this is it says, and Ruth the Moabite. How many of you know that your past will follow you? And that people won't let it die? Okay? They won't let it die. Over and over in this chapter, when they talk about Ruth, it's always preceded by Ruth the Moabite. Why is that significant? Because the Moabites, again, another trifling tribe. The Moabites are descendants of Lot. Lot slept with his 2 daughters, and that's how the Moabites got started. Full of incest, full of trickery. They were a people that came against God. They joined with the Assyrians, and they spent most of their time fighting against the Jews, fighting against the children of God. That's what they spent most of their time doing. And then the way they got started, the fact that Lot sleeps with his 2 daughters out of fear. He takes them to a cave because he doesn't want to keep going. His wife has died, she turned into a pillar of salt, and his 2 sons are dead. So he's just left, his 2 sons-in-laws, are dead. He's left with him and his 2 daughters. His 2 daughters, they start scheming and plotting, look here, we can't be staying in this cave all that time. We don't have any children, we don't have any inheritance, we have to get going here. And so basically they end up sleeping with their dad, and that's how the Moabites start. And so you have Ruth, who's coming from this background that's full of shame, full of fighting, full of strife with the children of Israel. Okay, that's all they do is just fight. And so Ruth ends up going to Naomi and Elimelech. So this is a house of God. So she comes from a house that's an unrighteous household, goes into a righteous household where she learns about God. And that's how you get her saying this: let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone whose eyes I find favor. Because Ruth ends up loving Naomi. After her husband dies, her brother-in-law dies, and Orpah leaves, Ruth stays with her mother-in-law. Here's what I want you to know about Ruth. Ruth is a righteous character. She's a character who, for all accounts, did the right thing at the right time. Ruth, however, because she's the Moabite and they won't let her forget it, they keep mentioning it. After she gets into the household of Naomi, she has to now live with Naomi. Now Naomi says this. Naomi says, look, God has taken everything from me. I no longer want to be called Naomi. Call me Mara, which means bitterness. Now who wants to go do that? Now you already came from a tribe of people who are killing, stealing, sleeping around with everybody, including their own sisters. Now you have to go into this house of bitterness. Because Naomi was very bitter. She had lost everything. All right? She's very, very bitter. And so it's like Ruth is out here gleaning. She's following behind people, gleaning. And then she has to come home to Naomi, who's just sitting on the couch smoking cigarettes all day. It's just like, who wants to do that? But Ruth doesn't. She does that anyway, right? She sits with Ruth. She loves on Ruth. And here's the thing I want you to know about Ridiculous Grace. Because even Ruth didn't know she got it. Because Ridiculous Grace will call you out of darkness. All right? She was born into darkness, born into sexual immorality. But it called her out of darkness and brought her into light. All right? But with Naomi, she's brought into the light. So those are the main, I want you to leave with that. Ridiculous Grace will shield you the way it did the lady in adultery. It will expose you, but it will also call you out of darkness. Okay? Call you out of darkness. I want the last lady, and this is the lady I want you to really think about. This last lady, she actually is the originator of the Me Too movement. Because shame followed her like a shadow. They disqualified her. And her name is Bathsheba. Most of us are familiar with the story of Bathsheba. She comes, it's 2 Samuel. So if you go there really quick, 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 2 through 5. One evening, David got up from his bed, walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanliness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." David is the king. She is the wife of Uriah. So the king, the one with the power, the one with the financial stability, the one with everything, has called her over and slept with her and impregnated her, and then sent her back home. How is she supposed to explain that to her husband? I just told you about the 2 stories where somebody was going to be burned and they were going to be stoned. This is not a society where adultery was taken lightly. And so you have Bathsheba here, who sometimes people will try to disqualify you from where God's trying to take you to. So she's already a wife. He basically turns her into an adulteress. Because you have a married woman sitting with a married man. So she's now an adulteress. And sometimes you'll find yourself, you slipping up, you hang with the wrong crowd, you're trying to fit in, and you will find yourself doing things that you weren't expecting yourself to do. Because here's the thing about sin. It will always take you further than you want to go and keep you longer than you want to stay. Every single time. It's not her part of it. She still bears the consequences for it. Ultimately, her baby dies. We know this story, most of us. Her baby ultimately dies. And she has to suffer through that. The death of a child, which my sister prayed about. There's some pain associated with that. Now, ultimately, she does have another son, but here was her ram in the bush. Her ram in the bush was Nathan. Because David, his whole plan was to send her home and let her pretend that they don't sleep together real quick, and then she's going to pretend that this is her husband Uriah's baby. She was the one that David came up with the plan. She was supposed to carry that plan out. People will put their stuff on you so quick and make you feel responsible for their sin. I didn't call me over to you, you called me. It's like, and she couldn't, how could she refuse? You have the king sending his secret service man to pick you up. What is she supposed to say to that? She says nothing. She goes along with it. Her husband is in the army. She doesn't want anybody to suffer. Not herself, not her husband. So she goes along with this thing. So, just like so many women, when you hear their stories in the Me Too movement, they went along with it. So before you judge them, think about how you would feel if you were there. Think about how far would you go, how far have you gone to protect yourself and to protect those you love, because that's what Bathsheba was doing. She's trying to protect herself and those that she loves. And here's this last point. Ridiculous grace will still qualify you. It will still qualify you. She went from being a wife to an adulteress, still ended up in Jesus' genealogy. Still gave birth to Solomon, who goes on to be the wisest, smartest man that we've ever heard about. Ridiculous grace will still qualify you. You are qualified in spite of everything that you've done, in spite of everything that you've gone through. You are still qualified. Now, let's not forget, grace, remember, is something you don't deserve. So don't get high up on your horse. Don't look down on everybody else while they sinning just because you finally came out of yours. Because you were a sinner too. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's what the word says, and we all know that is true. You're getting grace because you're messed up. That's why you're getting grace. So my points that you can take with you is that grace will shield you. Grace will expose you. Grace will call you out of the darkness. So in the middle of all that, it will call you out of the darkness. And grace will qualify you in spite of yourself. Here's the last thing I want to talk to you about. You. So when you get ready to today and take your picture, you're looking so cute with your makeup and your new outfit on, I want you to just hashtag yourself ridiculous grace. Because you too have received ridiculous grace. Grace in and of itself is a ridiculous concept, and you have it. We all have it. And we enjoy it every day, every single day. We enjoy ridiculous grace. There's a little quote I'm going to leave you with. It's from a woman named Kavita Ramdas. And she talks about the type of women we need today. And I thought this was really good. I thought she really hit home with this. And she says this: we need women who are strong. We need women who are so strong they can be gentle. So educated, they can be humble. So fierce, they can be compassionate. So passionate, they can be rational. And so disciplined, they can be free. Love that. Love that. I was up there, look at y'all, tech team. I love y'all. I love y'all so much. But it's like, that just hit home for me so well. And I want to leave you with that, and I want to just leave you with this. God loves you in spite of you. In spite of everything you've done, said, thinking about doing, and might do tomorrow. God loves you in spite of you. You are qualified. You have received ridiculous grace. Thank you.